Now, good morning, good afternoon, actually, everybody. And I hope this next sort of hour will give you some confidence, because that's what I want from an internal audit. Some confidence that, one, you know what to expect from your internal auditor. Two, you know what to prepare in terms of what then the internal auditor is going to need from you and want, but also to not feel frightened of an internal audit. I can remember going back when I first started in audit that my manager actually made people cry when he went out. Yeah. And some people actually went to the doctor and got Prozac because, they're leading up to the audit. It's not that bad. We all come with customer friendly across the top, I promise. Yeah. So talk to your internal auditor. Make sure that you actually have some engagement with them, not just once a year, but perhaps throughout the year. And certainly when you get your internal auditor, they will be your best friend in hopefully guiding you so that you know what to expect when you submit your AGAR form to the external auditor. Now, Eleanor's going to take you through lots of things today in terms of expectations of what to do as part of your internal audit and the navigation. And I'm going to leave her to actually tell you more about that as we go through the next hour. But I want to set you a challenge, because I've recently set my own forum members a challenge. How many of you use social media? How many of you use LinkedIn, the professional sort of forum platform? Because if you do, look us up on the Internal Audit Forum. We're there. We will actually give you help, support, and advice. So in that sense, why not follow us? At the moment, we have a few who follow us on the Internal Audit Forum, but I've set a challenge that I want more. So all of you today who use LinkedIn, why not after this session, go and follow the Internal Audit Forum, because actually we can give you some help and support and some guidance in terms of what we're here to do. Waiting to come in, and I'm going to let her carry on. She'll probably tell me off halfway through because I will interrupt a bit. But over to Eleanor, and I'll come back in through the session.
Hello, everybody. For those who haven't met Tim and I before, he actually lives about 5 miles from here, so I can't quite reach across and hit him on screen. But I've been doing parish audits since 1997. I really should have got out by now, but it's quite a good hobby, really. And I love it. I've become mildly obsessed with the sector. So here we are. And John asked Tim and I to come in today, and it's getting ready for internal audit. So first question is, do you know who your internal auditor is? Have you actually got one? Have you been in touch with them? If not, get on with it, because I can guarantee you my calendar, I just finished booking up the 19th of June. So please don't expect me to quote for anyone, because I am completely booked from the 2nd of April to 19th of June. So please make sure you know who your auditor is, and that if you are new to your council, you've got last year's audit report. When are they doing it? Have you got your date yet? If you're a big council who's had interims, you've probably already had several reports. But if you're a small council who just gets the one visit, make sure you have the date booked and in your calendar. I know that sounds really stupid, but I have literally turned up at clerks' houses in late May and they've gone, I forgot you were coming. And my engagement letter reserves me the right to charge them £75 for the pleasure of me driving back away again, having done nothing. So check what your internal audit is doing. And the most important stage, once you've got an internal auditor, especially, I'm just seeing Tanya's comment about internal auditor not for guidance and very curt about the way they say it. External auditors are very strictly not allowed to provide guidance. Internal auditors should be your critical friend. They can't answer all your questions, but they can show you a man who can. So if a council says to me, how do I do that? I will say, have a look at this council, they've been through it, or get onto the forums and ask. So if your internal auditor is being rude about your queries, frankly, change internal auditor. You've still got time. But if you have changed internal auditor, or even if you've got a new, in Fiona Lowe, I'll come back to your point in a second. If you've got your internal auditor is a member of the forum who's been getting spammed with updates of good practice from all of us, get them to send you what they want to look at. So anyone who has me as an internal auditor, or Tim, will get a list of the documents that we want. We used to ask for copies of everything, but frankly, I've given up storing that much paper. My loft insulation doesn't need it. But make
Eleanor,
sure
just to say, can I just interrupt only to say the Internal Audit Forum has a website. And on the Internal Audit Forum website, there's a directory and there's a list of internal auditors who will actually come and do internal audits for you. So if you're not sure where to go, who to get in touch with, go to the Internal Audit Forum website, look on their homepage, and at the top, in terms of what's in the banner at the top, there's a link to the Internal Audit directory, Internal Auditors directory.
Yeah. Just to slightly pick up on the comment about the internal auditor doing it all online, you can, but one of the key things, if you look at the practitioner's guide, is that the minute book, the hard copy minute book with the signatures, is the absolute key master document of the council. PDFs don't count. Websites don't count. That hard copy minute book that you can dig out of archives in 50 years is king. And that is why I'm afraid I always prefer to do them face to face. I have a couple that I do virtually, but they are people I've visited for several years. And so I know what their records are like. Internal auditors don't have experience of Scribe. Well, to be honest, the internal auditor is not actually auditing the accounts, so probably doesn't need to have experience of Scribe. They are auditing the systems and the controls. So to loop back a bit, if your internal auditor has not told you what they want to look at, and it doesn't bear a decent resemblance to what is on the Internal Audit Forum guidance, then if it doesn't bear a resemblance to that, again, change internal auditor. Somebody's just said their fees going up from 120 to 200. Again, it depends how big your council is and what you're doing. Everyone charges on a different way. My fees are based on your turnover. So if the council suddenly has SIL or something like that, your fees are going to go up because your turnover's gone up. Yeah, Mark Mulberry is a member of the forum. He's a great guy. He really, really, really knows his stuff.
Knows his stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. But certainly, if your internal auditor is not giving you information of what they want to look at, be concerned, because what are you paying for?
The other thing, just to add, Eleanor, is that in respect of an internal auditor coming to do the internal audit, please understand that actually it's not just about the numbers. It's not just about looking at what the numbers are on perhaps your annual return or even in your cash book. It goes beyond that. Yeah. And your internal auditor should be asking you lots of other things in terms of governance and all those sorts of things around the governance area, not just about the numbers. Eleanor.
So just quickly picking up, one of the Jess Shackleys has asked, does the Internal Audit Forum cover Wales? We have people who work in Wales. Welsh audit is very different. Can a councillor be an internal auditor? Absolutely flipping not. Well, not for their council anyway, or for one within 10 miles. So if you go to the practitioner's guide, section 4, the internal auditor has to be independent. Independent. That means they cannot be the clerk or their family, a councillor or their family or their mate. It shouldn't be your contractor, shouldn't be an ex-member. It should be somebody who can demonstrate that they are independent of the council. Do you need to change your internal audit on a regular basis? No. There is absolutely no requirement to change internal auditors. But What you have to do is review the independence and competence of your auditor regularly. So, for example, you might have somebody who was great, but it turns out they're married to one of your new councillors. They are no longer independent. So you should be reviewing the independence of your auditor regularly. Sue Grant. Okay, that's really off. Our parish had a mid-year audit, just been advised not available for the end of year. That is really, really off. Sue, would you be able to send me or Tim an email?
Yes, please. I think
Yeah,
we need to
because
know about that.
that's a big issue. Clerk advises the internal audit arrangements are not independent. What can the clerk do? The clerk can ask for quotes for new internal auditors to be taken to the next council meeting quite urgently, because, all right, who's being audited? Council or clerk or both? Right. Chris. So Chris Lindsay, who's being audited? Clerk or council? The systems of the council are being audited. Yeah. So if you have got a copy of the practitioner's guide, which is freely available on the NOUC website and just about everywhere else, it's quite a dry document. Sections 1, 2, and 3 are the what's called proper practices in the legislation. So just to give a little bit of background, as an equivalent, the Equalities and Human Rights Commission writes the compulsory guidance for the Equalities Act. Equality Act 2010. So if they say you can't discriminate, the law doesn't change, but the compulsory guidance changes. JPAG are the equivalent for parish audit. So the legislation won't get changed, but if JPAG issue a new practitioner's guide, you have to follow it. You don't have a choice. So sections 1, 2, and 3 are not just pretty to look at. They are effectively the law. And if JPAG changes what's in there, like telling you have to have .gov email addresses, you have to have .gov email addresses. No discussion. It's effectively the law because they are the statutory regulator for that thing. So
just to say, Eleanor, the practitioner's guide should be on your bookshelf in the sense that it should be there for you to refer to all day, every day.
Yeah.
And it tells you all the things you probably need to know.
Yeah. So section 4, which starts on page 24 of the 77-page document. So it isn't huge, and store it as a PDF. For goodness sake, don't print it. Store it as a PDF because then you can search it at any time. It's great. So section 4 has selecting and appointing an internal auditor. And basically, yes, if you have concerns about the internal auditor, one of the Jess Shackleys has said there's no enforcement. Yeah, don't start me on that. My head will go out the top of the screen on that one. Yeah, I have to be hauled back off the ceiling on the regulation side. Yeah. But
just keep going, Eleanor. Just keep going.
The main point. So section 4 is how to choose an auditor, and also what the auditor should be looking at. And on pages, hang on, I'm just scrolling down my bookmark copy. So starting at page 27, it's got what the internal auditor should be looking at. If you're the Joint Practitioners Advisory Group, Mandy, if you, John's just put up the link to the guide on the first page, it says who they are. So yeah, have a look at the testing schedule, which it runs from page 27 to page, hang on a second. It runs to page 33. That is what your internal auditor should be looking at. If they're not, what are you paying for?
Because you should be able to test them as well on the back of making sure that that's what they do. Yeah.
They really, if your internal auditor isn't raising those points, be concerned. So section 4 of the practitioner's guide is guidance for auditors. So what you should be expecting from your auditor. Section 5 is the bit that you guys will really, really like, because the Internal Audit Forum was bounced into rewriting it 2 years ago. And it is basically the clerk's crib sheet for getting ready for internal audit. It takes every box on the AGAR, explains what should be in it and how to get there. So it's really, really useful. Of course, one of the brilliant things of using sector-specific software like Scribe, like Rialtus, is that it will turn your accounts directly into the AGAR with things linked in the right place, as long as you've coded them right. But, you know, whereas things like Sage and Xero, lovely, but they're not geared up for councils. So I would always say use sector specific software. And just to blow John's trumpet here, he's released a Scribe Lite mini version. So for those of you who tear your hairs out trying to make the spreadsheet balance at the end of the year, I would strongly recommend saying, no, sod it with the spreadsheet, go and get proper software that will balance at all times and will produce the payment list in accordance with the legislation, the AGAR in accordance with the legislation. It will automatically help you do your asset register in accordance with the legislation. So your internal auditor is the first thing the internal auditor should be looking at is the minute book before they go anywhere near your accounts. Are your minutes hard copy printed? Are they signed? Are they initialed on every page? Is every set of minutes there? Is the payment list in the minutes? Can you get back to the 60-year-old minutes and see them in there? Will your current minute file be supportive of going back to stuff in 10, 15 years' time? Because if your minutes are full of hyperlinks, they're beautiful, but completely flipping useless if you ever change your domain name or rearrange your website. They're also utterly useless when you, in 10 years' time, have to get your minute book out of county archives to agree an argument on a lease. So please make sure that your minute, and this is why I'm paranoid about remote audits, because people are looking at the account system, not the controls. So what we're interested in for our page of the AGAR, if you look at what we're signing off, we don't actually care how much the tractor cost. We care that you agreed to buy a new tractor. You went out and got 3 quotes. You took the quotes to council. You did the value for money one, not necessarily the cheapest. You then bought it properly, 2 signatures paid for the payment, and then you did it back through your budget monitoring. That is what internal control is. I couldn't give a stuff how much the tractor cost. It's how you bought it that matters. So that's the key part. But certainly, I mean, you know, the practitioner's guide used to be deathly dull. We had a wonderful quote when we were rewriting it. One of the consultees went, that particular paragraph is very pompous. I said, yes, Steve, but you wrote it, which was quite fun. But the point is, we have tried to make it legible and friendly. On the NAUC website, there is actually a JPEG email address. If there are bits of the practitioner's guide that you look at it and go, what are they on about? It doesn't make sense. Please email in with your query, because JPEG, the committee that manages this statutory document, they meet quarterly. They will talk about your queries and try to make things better, because all of us who are obsessed with the sector, we want to make it work better. And the only way we can make it work better is to get feedback from you guys of how it works in practice. But certainly getting ready for internal audit means, what is your auditor asking for? Does it make sense compared with the best practice guidance? Do you have everything? Are your financial regulations up to date? Oh, a quick nice bit of news for everybody. Don't bother worrying about your financial regulations at the moment, because Steve Parkinson of the Parkinson Partnership, Kerry, it sort of relates to Wales. I'll come back to you in a second. Steve Parkinson is currently updating the financial regulations, and he's doing radical things like including emails and electronic payments, and the idea that actually payments aren't made by check anymore. So the financial regulations are going to be brought into the current century, possibly even the current decade, if Steve gets his way. Yeah, I can see people being relieved. And also, the regs are going to be laid out like standing orders are, with this is compulsory, this can be adopted, this can be largely ignored if you're very small, but actually if you're sensible, you leave everything in. And he's all, when we met with him last week before.
Week before last, yeah.
Yeah, time flies. He's actually going to highlight in the electronic document where you drop in your own figures. So for your own delegated authority, because we have seen clerk's I've actually seen a set that said clerk's delegated authority is pound NNN. It's like, guys, you've adopted the model a bit too closely there. You haven't done it. So that's coming through. So
shall we get John to run another poll now, Eleanor?
well, and yeah, he runs a poll, and I would just quickly say to Kerry, Wales is tricky, because so while you're all thinking about this one, Welsh Audit took over all of the audits from the commercial firms, and no, the contract finder levels are set in legislation. There's nothing we can do about that. So Wales Audit run a completely different system. I gather their deadlines are pretty atrocious and their fees are even scarier. We will be trying to get connections with One Voice Wales, who of course have replaced the SLCC and now in Wales. But it's very, very tricky because the system has become very different and it's even more under-resourced. So watch this space. Hopefully by the summer we'll have a better idea. But yeah, to pick up Nigel's comments, contract finder levels are set in legislation. They will not be changing at all. It's that won't change. What he is doing though is clarifying where tenders are needed, because tenders are not in legislation, believe it or not. And so he's going to sort that bit out. Right, I better put, no, I won't put my answer into the thing, otherwise it will get embarrassing. So yeah, go on, should we let John do his results then? Where's he gone?
Yeah, I've launched them. They should be sharing. Yeah. So we've got, why do parish town councils need financial regs and standing orders? Top answer, it's best practice. Second place, we got to comply with internal audit report of the AGAR, and then down the bottom, to ensure the clerk is performing their role properly.
Okay.
I assume you saw all the answers. Yeah. Cool.
Right, so Charlotte's just asked when the fin regs are coming out. The timing is aiming to be for everyone to adopt them at their May meetings, so not before the year end. Steve will probably have finished them by the year end, but actually
that's what he's trying to do, isn't it? Trying to get it done by the end of March. Yeah.
But the ideal time, which is of course the ideal meeting to review standing orders, financial regulations, fixed asset, risk assessment register, those 4 key documents, which of course you should be adopting every single year, should be on the, actually John, can you share the poll results into the chat? So the 4 key documents, financial regulations, standing orders, risk assessment and asset register, they should be going into your May meeting every single year, even if they are I can only see my ones. John, have you got the full poll result? Does it come up?
I've pasted it in there now. I don't.
There you go.
Okay,
so the 4 key documents should be being reviewed every year, even if the review says it needs no change. So please make sure that you are doing that. So yes, if you're currently reviewing them, I genuinely shelve that project till the new ones come out, because the new ones are going to be so different. Because the old ones, there were bits in there that we reckon went back to the mid-90s when the yellow book came in. The 4 documents: standing orders, financial regulations, fixed asset register, risk assessment. And bearing in mind that the fixed asset register, when you are reviewing it, there is no depreciation in council accounts ever, and also stuff is held at cost forever. So, and the bonus of a good fixed asset register is it's your capital planning document. If you're looking at the asset register and it's got the required information, value to put against a tree. I tend not to put assets that can die. We had a real problem with a council that had cattle, and it was like whether do we put the abattoir fees when we replace the cattle that died? So I've tended to tell councils not to put things that can die on their asset registers. That's just, but yeah, and so the asset register, if you've got it, if it's got the age of the play area, how much it cost, who supplied it, that then links into your insurance schedule, and that tells you what your capex is going to be. So when you're planning your budget, which your auditor should be looking at, you don't have depreciation. There is no depreciation in parish councils.
No.
So the financial risk assessment, oh, shall I stick a template one up onto the IAF site, Tim?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Hang on.
Yeah, as Eleanor said, just to finalise what she was saying on that part, please remember that your internal auditors should be asking you for those 4 things. And if they don't, I think you should ask your internal auditor why they haven't asked you for those. Yeah.
Yeah. Wendy's just said, is there a recommended value? This was a bit fun this year. There was one external auditor who got very snotty at a council for not capitalizing a mobile phone, and so we put them straight that it's up to the council to decide what gets capitalized. As a rule of thumb, are you insuring it? Would you claim for it on an insurance claim? Is in your tool shed, if it gets burned down, which we had, one of the councils had, what will you put on your insurance claim? That's what's on your asset register. What about assets that wear out? Yeah, they stay on at cost. There is no depreciation in council accounts. Absolutely none ever. Clerks asking me to do a 3-year review of the value. Why? I mean, you can do a 3-year review of what you need to replace, but you don't need to look at the values. Items such as printers that are stopped working, if they're not working, they're obsolete, you zero them off the asset register and you bin them. If they're still working, I mean, I worked at a builder's merchant that was still using a 50-year-old forklift. It was a beautiful machine. The company had gone bust because they built such good machines they never broke. But it's, if you still use village halls. So there is a village hall that I visit, which is valued at £105. It is because that's what it cost to build in 1902. It is insured for 1.8 million because that's what it will have to be replaced at. So anything that has died, you bin and take off the register. So memorial hall. So if you've got a memorial hall that was built in, say, 1905, it's likely to have a plaque on the front. Put it in for the best principle is a nominal figure of £1, and then you insure it. So you've got your asset register is £1 and your insurance register is different, completely different. Because if you're transferred an asset, if you get an asset under section 106, the developer builds on all the lovely farmland, builds you a nice hall and hands you the hall for free. That hall has cost you nothing. So it goes into your asset register at £1. The reason not naught is because then there's a total in there. So litter bin Russ, if it costs £200 and you replace it, you take the £200 one off the register and you put the £300 one on. So your register will have disposals and additions every year.
Yeah. John, do you want to run another poll on the asset when I said?
Yeah. So hang on. So Heather, you're saying that your external auditor didn't like you holding at the original value. Do put them in touch with Tim and I'll explain it to them in words of one syllable. Because if you look at the guidance on, and I'm just trying to find the correct page in section 5, there is actually a bit on gifted assets.
Yeah.
So yeah, gifted assets, they go in. I'm not going to cheat the question, but there we go. Can't find a clear minute trail from minutes via reports after see the repeats of the year. So
whilst Eleanor's just looking this up, one of the things that I'd just say to you all, have you ever, or would you ever consider looking at your insurance policy, seeing what you're actually insuring, and making sure that those things that you're actually insuring, you still own. Have you ever looked at the fact that some of the things you may have disposed of, and therefore then you've not looked at your insurance policy, so assets have been disposed of but are still being insured?
When you find out you've got 11 lawnmowers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, there was also the council that had 16 hedge trimmers, because if you've got the grounds team, they love buying new kit. And if you let them go to the Institute of Groundsmen's exhibit in Birmingham, they come back just with pound signs in their eyes, and they'll keep buying more, and they won't take the old stuff off the register. Yeah, village hall contents, no, just village hall contents, £5,000. You don't need to list all the knives and forks.
Yeah, just teaspoons. No, don't want those.
No, please, no. So I'm just seeing, so can't find a minute trail from the minutes of the accounts via reports. So in the minutes, there should be the list of payments. There should also be the bank reconciliation. There should also be budget monitoring. Now, how often you do budget monitoring depends on the size of your council. If you're a gigantic council, you're going to be budget monitoring every single month, probably at committee level. If you're a teeny tiny council, precept £3,000, monthly budget monitoring is pretty much a waste of time and space. But it's certainly, when you're setting the budget, your budget should be in the format: last year budget, last year actual, this year actual to date, this year budget, next year budget. Because if your budget doesn't tie up to your actuals, it's an art form, not a budget. And I have seen budgets which were beautiful, color-coded, boxes, bore no relation to the cash book at all. So there should be budget monitoring at even the smallest council. When you are doing the budget, there should be a review of what you're actually spending, and that will also tell you about your capital stuff. Can we see an example of payments on minutes? Add these in. Okay, have a look at Shaftesbury Town Council, or Petersfield Town Council, or Tadley Town Council. Pretty much most of the good town councils should be properly disclosing their payment list. And if you're not actually complying with the Local Government Act. Taken on a council that doesn't have an asset register. Oh, bless. If you've got ideally put in your best guess. If it at real extreme, just put £1 in for everything, but at least you've got the list of what they are. Make a living looking after very small councils, very valid. So yeah, I mean, I think my smallest council has a precept of 3,000. They're tiny. My biggest council is about to start a £10 million project. They all go on the same flipping agar. Don't yeah. But yeah, I mean, so the main thing is that the auditor is looking at the controls over what you do. So do the minutes show how the council spent the money?
Yeah,
that's the important part. Can a reader of the minutes so hang on, small council didn't agree the budget, agreed the precept. Well, how can you set a precept without a budget? Sorry, I don't want to be dumb here, but that's, if you look at the precept form, you will see that it says on the precept form to every district council, this is based on our budget. Yeah. So if your council submitted a precept form without a budget, they lied to the district. Hate to be boring here, but that's called fraud.
It's got to be part and parcel of the same discussions that are happening at your council, because as Eleanor says, how can you be sure that you can actually go and spend money? First of all, you can make decisions about things that you need to be doing. If you haven't got your budget set correctly and you ask for the wrong sort of precept, or if you're asking for a precept that's a finger in the air job because you haven't set a budget, I don't see that as being very responsible in terms of the way in which the council have gone around the financial control. So your auditor should be picking that up and telling you that you need to be doing something different.
I would also.
Can I just drop in, seeing as you're finishing off the topic of assets, because I've got a small ask, if you don't mind. So we are building a new asset manager. Asset manager is already built into Scribe accounts, but we're building a far more advanced version of it, and we're looking for help with people testing it. So if you're interested in helping, let me just drop a message on the, where's the chat there? I'll just drop this message here. Just drop a yes in the chat after this. So yeah, it's got a real-time dashboard. So it's a lot of the time the asset manager is the assets on, you know, like an annual thing, but this is a real-time dashboard of all your assets, the value, condition of it, full comprehensive asset manager, and then the mapping of it. Here's a little screenshot of it. So you can see the top total assets, the asset value, purchase value, insurance value difference, and then mapping all the locations of your assets along with all your up and coming maintenance tasks, inspections, etc. And then you can get a breakdown of your total charges against each category and the condition. And then with the condition, we're going to start predicting how much you need to reserve in terms of money, but you know, so we'll know the actual insurance value. And then based on you going around recording the conditions, we'll start predicting what you need to put money aside in the future based on the longevity of that asset. So it's got all the, obviously all the key stuff in there, and you know, the imagery, etc., as well as the mapping. And as you can see here, well, it's not on this screenshot here, but yeah, you also put in the lifespan of it. So through the lifespan, the condition, the insurance value will be able to, you know, be a great tool to manage that. And then we're going to be doing a whole bunch of stuff in the future with, you can input your fuel, gas, electricity consumption manually or via a smart meter, and then we'll calculate your carbon footprint so you can start tracking that. So yeah, sorry, Eleanor, back to you.
No, that's cool. I was just going to say, on the practitioner's guide, page 41. Page 41 of the practitioner's guide is the guidance for clerks on asset registers, showing about what you put on, what you put off, obsolete assets sitting at zero, waiting to be disposed of, receiving gifts, and so on. So it's all in the practitioner's guide. You don't have to suffer on your own. Any of you who are SLCC members, the SLCC forum is good. Any of you who are in the Scribe Clerks Facebook group, there are always people at any hour of the day and night ready to answer questions. Oh yeah, actually, that, yeah, linking the asset register in parish online. Yeah, I mean, that could be quite cool. So somebody upstream asked about, should wages payments be on the payment list? Yes, they're a payment. If you have several employees, you are allowed to put salary batch, and that can be the total value of all of your salaries. If you have one employee, well, their salary is going to go on the AGAR anyway, so there's not a lot of point hiding it. I also say to clerks, if you are the only employee, chances are that what the council pays you is not the totality of your income. You know, there's a council I've dealt with where they have a vexatious elector who gets very, very cross about the fact the clerk is overpaid because she drives an Audi. No, yeah. The Audi belongs to her husband, who's a director of a PLC. So you know what? The clerk is paid £4,000 a year. I don't think that's buying the Audi. But if you get electors like that, I mean, sadly, you do have to disclose all of the payments should be disclosed. And if you are the sole employee, that will be your total pay. You are allowed to merge. So we shouldn't redact salaries. It's going to be on the AGAR anyway, which you can't redact. Yeah, you cannot redact the AGAR in any way. That is not legal. Even the signatures may not be redacted on the AGAR.
Well, that's actually been confirmed by the external auditors themselves.
Yes. Yeah. The AGAR may not be redacted. So if you are the sole employee, your salary is going to be going up. Council resolve not to put the original values on the asset register. If it's old assets that you no longer have the records for, then put your best guess. Park benches, £200 each, lamp posts, £1,000 each. But if you do know the cost, why not? Why are you not telling the truth to the public?
Transparency and accountability.
Yeah. And some further up, it came up about FOIs. there is a very clear correlation that the ICO has noted between councils that embrace transparency and they get less FOIs than the councils who bunker down and hide stuff. Financial regs require salary to be confidential in the cash book. Well, the financial regs are going in the bin shortly, and if your financial regs don't match the model, they're about to be changed, please. The salary cannot be hidden if you are the only employee, because it's going to go on the AGAR. Payments, so yeah, staff costs, exactly. You can combine the total cost of employment, because I totally agree, giving out the actual net pay can give away your tax code. That is a GDPR breach. There is no reason for the councillors and everyone else to know the clerk's tax code. So that's why you would merge it back in together. Yep, cool. But certainly transparency, please read what is written in section 5 of the practitioner's guide. Please make sure your auditor is very au fait with section 4. And if they're not, change internal auditors. Somebody asked about Cheshire. We're trying to get more auditors all the time. We are actively recruiting for more internal auditors. Have to take out expenses and mileage. They go in box 6, not box 4, so they should be separated out anyway.
And the other thing to add, if I can, Eleanor, on the basis of everybody here today, not everybody here will probably have an auditor from the Internal Audit Forum. If that is true, and you know that your internal auditor is not part of the forum, get them to join. So please ask them whether or not that they are members of our forum. And if they're not, look on our website and get membership. Very cheap in terms of what we're asking for payment. It's £15 per year. Very good value for money.